Well, how's everybody doing out there tonight? Good? I'm praying. I wasn't too good this morning, but I'm all right now. I just threw up. So this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and if I start to sweat, you'll have to forgive me, because if I don't sweat, I'll probably explode. Speaking of exploding, a fellow walked into a doctor's office and wanted a vasectomy. And the doctor says, "Are you Polish?" He says, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, I think probably the best thing for you to do is to go down to the firecracker store, buy a firecracker, hold it to your head, and count to 10. So the fellow says, "Well, I don't think that's such a great idea. I'm going to try for a second opinion." So he goes downstairs into the other doctor's office and says to the doctor, "I'm interested in having a vasectomy." The doctor says, "Are you Polish?" He says, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, I think the best thing for you to do is to go down to the firecracker store, buy a firecracker, light it, hold it to your head, and count to 10. So he says, "Well," he says, "that's two opinions. I guess that's the thing to do." So he goes down, he buys the firecracker, he lights it, holds it to his head, and he starts counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The easy way out. The easy way out. It's another story, real fast story. An Indian goes into a grocery store, and the Indian looks at the clerk and says, "Me like to buy 6-pack of toilet paper." So the clerk runs in the back, he comes out with this 6-pack of Charmin. Indian says, "How much?" Clerk says, $2.75. Indian says, "Too much, don't want." Clerk runs in the back, comes out with a Scott tissue. Indian says, "How much?" Clerk says, $1.75. Indian says, "Too much, don't want." Clerk runs in the back, he comes out with this old brown no-name toilet paper. Indian says, "How much?" Clerk says, 75 cents. He says, "I like it, I'll take it." Comes back 2 weeks later, walks up to the clerk, he says, "Me have a name for no-name toilet paper." Clerk says, "What's that?" He says, "John Wayne." He says, "John Wayne, why John Wayne?" He says, "It's rough, it's tough, and it don't take no shit off nobody." Little fella, 16 years old, he walks into a drugstore and goes up to the pharmacist and tells him he likes to buy a pack of contraceptives. The pharmacist says to him, he says, "Why?" He says, "Why?" He says, "I had this date with this chick tonight. She's supposed to be a really hot number, and I want to be ready." So the pharmacist sits down, has a little talk with him, and the fellow says, "Well, I appreciate the talk, but I still want my goods because I have to get out of here." So he takes his package, he goes, he knocks on the door, and the girl answers the door, and she looks at him and says, "You're here early. We're just getting ready to sit down to have dinner. Would you like to join us?" He says, "Sure." So they're sitting there, and the father says, "Who would like to say grace?" The fellow raises his hand and said, "I would." He gives a really nice grace. They have dinner, they walk out the door, and the girl says, "I never knew you were so religious." He says, "I never knew your father was a pharmacist." My name is Lambert. I'm from Newtown, which is a small little town right outside of, just right over that way. I've been born and raised in Newtown. I've been there my whole life, and I've seen how it's changed. It was a little town. Now all of a sudden it's getting bigger, and the crazy people are starting to move into Newtown. I had my car in the garage the other day and had to get down to the mall, so I started hitchhiking. This fellow comes down, he picks me up, about 16 years old. I get in the car and we're driving down the street, and he's talking to me, and I look at the traffic light, and the traffic light's red, and he's not slowing down at all. So my foot starts on the floor like this. He goes right through the traffic light. I said to him, I said, "Hey, pal, you just ran a red light." He says, "It's nothing to worry about." He says, "My brother does it all the time." So I'm sitting there, I shake my head, and I look, and we're coming up to another light, and there it is, red. The fellow goes right through it. I said, "You're driving, I appreciate the ride, but you just ran through another red light." He says, "I told you, it's nothing to worry about. My brother does it all the time." So I know there's only one more traffic light before we get to the mall, and I can see it in the distance. And I'm just praying it's going to be green when we get there. We get to the light, it's green. The fellow stops. I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "The light's green, why are you stopping?" He says, "My brother might be coming the other way." I decided I had to get away from Newtown for a while, so I went to the West Coast, California, just for a vacation. Beautiful state, but the people there are crazy. They don't care about a thing, not a thing. They have an earthquake and the ground opens up and the fellow standing there and looking will say, wow, there goes my house. There goes my family. It's Miller time. One more fast story about a fellow, gay fellow, comes in, sits at the bar, standing there, and he takes his hands and he has them cupped like this. And he says, if anybody can guess what I have in my hand, they get a free blowjob. This construction worker walks up to him, big guy, he says, you have a big elephant in there. The fellow leans back, he says, looks like we have a winner. Thank you very much. If you enjoy meeting me half as much as I've enjoyed meeting you, well then I guess I enjoyed it twice as much as you did. Thank you.
Wait for the camera, Lane. Wait for the camera. Say hi, Mom.